Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Gyan Murtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adoration to Sadguru is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha in Upashama Prakarana. Topic is Siddha Gita, Song of the Siddhas, and the sections are 7 and 8. Good news. Without going far and wide, you were listening to the Song of the Siddhas. King Janaka had hard time coming to that situation of listening. It took him a lot of effort, and as a result of a lot of good karmas, when he came to his garden and then began to listen to Song of Siddhas. Subtle meaning I have been giving to you. Now, in the process of that song, we adore the self, which is the all-encompassing reality, which includes the entire range of verbal expressions, beginning with A and ending with H, and which are joined together by the nasal M. This is a very important verse, so I will read out to you the Sanskrit. Ashiraskam hakarantam asheshakara sansthitam ajasra muncharantam swam tadatmanam upasmahe. All this is glorification of aham. Everyone calls oneself aham in Sanskrit. But we go far away from Sanskrit, say hum. But what aham itself meant, the sages brought in literature profound wisdom. A begins the Sanskrit vowels and consonants. And ha, H ends the entire vocabulary. So if you want to say from beginning to end, say, ah. Therefore, in Uttarayana Marg, aha point has been highlighted. Agnir Jyoti aha Shukla. But don't. In a state of ignorance, everyone waits to say aha. It takes a time. It takes sometimes many births. So, in the letter aham, which is In English, it's I am, aham. Even I am has certain root letter behind it. See. Your real iPad, you see, the real I, not the small I. And with am, M closes the all that your vocal sound, vocal range terminates with I am, Sanskrit word, I am Atma Brahma. That I am has in English become I am. Coming back to the topic. So the entire range of consonants and vowels, Sanskrit literature, is brought into the word aham. In other words, that aham is subtle, instinctive awareness expressing in every individual, aham. And what it is reminding you, pointing to, that the real I am in every person is absolute self, is all encompassing, all that you can say with all your literature. If all of them were to be put in one, then that's aham. Aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Those who abandon the divinity abiding in the cave of the heart, that aham comes from the cave of your heart. That's a deep down inner urge. So when you look for your aham, always look for your heart. Now, though that aham is constantly supporting you, constantly you are talking about, and yet human understanding has not gone into discovering the reality of aham. Whom do you call I am? If you were to discover that I am, then you have found everything, because the I am included everything that you can describe from A to H. So, in spite of the fact that aham is the source and the reality behind every individual, but the soul, led because of ignorance, ignores the most profound presence of the divine self, of the absolute self, without which you can't even think of anything. Without awareness, you can't act. That awareness in its very pure, pristine stage is aham. And that aham, therefore, the value of that aham you can't imagine. Because the entire world comes out of it. Entire world is sustained by it. Entire world dissolves in it. Think of, for easy understanding, the entire world of illuminations emanates from the sun. All this world of illumination is sustained by the sun. All this enters into the sun. Sun is the reality. So, every individual is like a reflected sun. A reflected sun should practice reflection. Who am I? Instead, it goes after confections. It goes after sense pleasure. So, that treasure of treasures abide in the cave of the heart. And yet everyone runs after the objects of the world in search of happiness. They are like the dull-witted who abandon the already acquired Kaustubha gem for the sake of worthless stones. Kaustubha gem is a mystic gem that fulfills all your desires. That you have. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. For the sake of the self, all becomes dear. Some deer go this way, some deer go that way. And that self, you don't have to look for it. That's what is your very root. That's your reality. And you can't exist without it, even for a fragment of a second. Try to figure out now. Advanced religion, where is God? Mind stretches with so much imagination. But highly advanced state, where is it not? Here and now. But again, you have to understand when I say here and now, don't look around here and now. Understand the whole mechanism of perception. How you are perceiving through your nervous system, through your brain. But what is making the brain operate? And even the idea there is a brain, who is conjecturing that type of concept? It's the play of mind. And behind the mind, again go further, your intellect, and ultimately the source behind the mind is absolute consciousness. So without consciousness, can you exist for a moment? Imagine, try it. The dull-witted, who in spite of knowing that there is nothing tangible in the pleasures of the senses, just like in all the illuminations of the sun, there is no real sun. Real sun is up there, beyond. All reflections are illusions. Nothing is tangible. And yet, soul, gripped by ignorance, is going after the objects of pleasure. All things that the soul goes after in the world of time, space, causation. All things are in the realm of Maya. They are backed up by your mental projection, projection-based experience. In cinema show, all your experience on the screen is projection-based. But no matter how entertaining the show is, it terminates. And all the time you have been fooled, you are looking at the screen. Even in your TVs, you see, go on looking. But ultimately, when the show goes off, just the plain TV. But in a figurative way, we are describing just a plain TV. Here is just the plain absolute consciousness. So the dull-witted who, in spite of knowing that there is nothing tangible in the pleasures of the senses, still run after them. Somehow human nature, human personality doesn't learn lessons. Ordinary lessons you learn, but not profound lessons. Lesson that happiness is not really in objects of the world. Happiness is not really in any type of setup that you find in the world. You come into a good family, you have wonderful children, and then you have wonderful grandchildren. Now you have happiness. It's not really so. Happiness is not in any setting. Because all this will pass away. As long as that question, can it last forever? If that question is not answered, then your real happiness is not there. But still, if you run after them, then you are unfit to be called human beings. You will be called Murk. A dull-wit. Give you the meaning of Murk terms. Kha relates to Akasha, expansion. So the khagat, birds fly in a space, that Kha. Turn away from expansion. Murjana. Turn around. Instead of opening the door and flying, move back into the egg. And be cozy. It will work. Dull-wit. Three things are great blessings. Manushyatvam, mumukshutvam, mahapurusha samshaya. To be embodied as a human being is a tremendous blessing. Look around. Would you have been a squirrel, a crow, a frog, a deer, an elephant, a lion? Can be many things. But no matter what you have been, compared to human intelligence, all that is very little. As a human being, you have a different capacity You're not confined all into instinct. Rationality advances and intuition. Manushyatvam. You begin to develop awareness of the purpose of life. You develop mumukshutvam, aspiration for attaining enlightenment. And in order to attain that, Mahapurusha Samshaya, go after satsanga, saintly guidance, finding Guru and be guided, all that is implied. All that becomes possible as a human being. So instead of understanding all the wonderful blessings that you have, and your project should be to discover the treasure of all treasures, the self. If once that attention of your mind flows towards that, that's the most joyous fulfillment of life. Just as in ancient times, Indra hurled a thunderbolt against the rising summits of the mountains, in the same way an aspirant should strike the hissing snakes of the senses again and again with a rod of discrimination until they are subdued. It's all poetic writings. Simple meaning is that allow your subtle understanding to operate. Don't go after illusions. Don't go on committing the same error. Be wise. Don't repeat a mistake. If you go on taking the mistake, I'm joking. If you go on committing the mistake, the take term there. You go on committing mistakes without learning lesson from them, then it's very dull with life. And another fact of life, no matter how advanced you may feel or may be, as long as you live, you go on recognizing your error and correcting it. You went to the kitchen and a certain part of the stove burnt you. Don't do it again next day. Sometimes people don't learn lesson. They'll go again and do it again. I'm giving a very simple point. But this is a profound teaching. To understand the intricate workings of your mind, how certain type of desire within you led you to some illusion, how certain plan you had and you followed it. Your mind said, oh, go off for a big trip. And you followed it and came back exhausted, miserable. Now therefore learn lesson. All that time we used there, you could have carried on with some concrete project and allowed yourself to live more purposefully. So learn lesson. And in learning lesson, There is a constant vigilance in your mind. There are two choices appear in every situation, every day, every period of time. One is a choice that is healthy, choice to let the higher self win, or a choice that is unhealthy, the lower self, what's termed in Upanishad Shreya and Preya. Shreya choice, just to give a crude illustration, you are waking up early in the morning and you are healthy, you have no problems. Now it's time for walking or doing meditation or enjoying the morning breeze. Is a wonderful time, the dawn. But to sniff your pillow, stay cozy under a blanket. Say to yourself, oh, 5 minutes more. Another 5 minutes becomes 50 minutes. So, what is needed is vigilance. Don't fall for it, because that also becomes your habit. If you fall for it by repeated falling, that process becomes sahaj, spontaneous. Rising becomes difficult. You correct it by repeated effort, not to fall but to rise. In the beginning it becomes a challenge because you have not gained a proper spiritual health. But once you have gained it, the question that you have to do effort to rise, that doesn't arise. Birds don't have to do effort to fly. Section 9, Sage Vasishtha continued. Having listened to these heavenly songs sung by the Siddhas, King Janaka became reflective. Just as a coward becomes frightened at the shouts of a battle, so too the king became frightened by the clamor of the world. Like a river rushing to the ocean, he rushed into his palace. It's giving a very allegorical way, don't take it literally. Allegorical way, King Janaka, who felt himself so great, controller of big countries, and so many subjects were so pleased with him and doing lot of mighty works. And now, having listened to this song of Siddhas, suddenly he finds all that he has cannot really give him any solid happiness. All that he has, once he kicks the bucket, all will go into gone. I'm joking. And that sense of mortality versus immortality. You are immortal. But until you discover immortality, you are, like anything else in the world, transient. Now, mind that has developed that type of sensitivity, the world, staying with the world, being fascinated by the world, that no longer pleases the spiritual guts. So therefore, he rushed into the palace for practicing reflection. Ascending the stairs to the uppermost story of his palace, he confined himself to a solitary room and reflected upon the significance of the words of the Siddhas. The physical setting is just, you can take it literally, go find a place within your house or in your puja room where you are free from noises, or you can go into higher level, bring in your personality that state of mind that is calm, not involved with the world. And in that calmness, instead of figuring out objects of the senses, figure out, who am I? What's the goal of life? What I'm trying to say is that each time when you are told practice reflection, meditation, it suddenly gives your mind the idea you have to sit down and you have to be alone. But advanced practice is a constant internal movement. Sometimes you are doing something very righteous, good action, and during that process, inspiration dawns. Your understanding becomes clearer. If you had certain confusion about understanding something, it moves away. In allegorical language, you have gone into the uppermost story of your palace. It is regrettable that I am being driven through repeated experiences of birth and death. All this is how the highly sensitive mind looks at the whole predicament, that you are not only in this embodiment, you've gone through many embodiments. It's easy to understand for intelligent mind. It is indeed sorrowful that like senseless stones rolling among stones, just like suddenly sometimes something happens on a mountain, summit of the mountain breaks, and countless stones thus go on falling over stones. And they don't cry, stones after stones. It's a poetic language, which means meaningless. Similarly, human life flows on, meaningless. If someday some psychic progress comes and become available to human beings, he will put the mechanism and look at your previous birth, how you were, where you were born, who were your parents, how many problems you faced. The more advancement, more details. But all the details should simply give you a lesson that this will continue if you don't attain enlightenment. You continue from one embodiment to another. And you may not stay just in human level, you may go into animals, birds, in all types of embodiments. I'm being led through birth, growth, disease, old age, and death. In each embodiment, you don't go back into your stream of what you have been doing. Say, for example, in previous embodiment, you wanted to become a musician, so started learning music when you were 70 years old. And hardly you had learned few little lessons, and you expired. But now, get back to the same lesson, it will not be so quick. You have to go through the mother's womb, and you have to be born, you have to be baby, you have to wait for your teeth to develop. And to face countless challenges. Then when you come to my 6-7 year age, or 5 years, sometimes 5 years, whatever, then you become aware of what your purpose is, you become directed towards. But hardly you get directed, you become youthful. Young mind develops a lot of distractions. So, birth unearths your project. You have to grow, birth. Then growing problem. And disease. You never know. Even from very childhood, parents go after checking the children. What is the potential disease and how can it be corrected? What injections should be put to the children? I'm joking too much, but the idea behind it. No one lives a normal life. Everyone faces diseases. Even though you are very young, energetic, and lot of energy, but one little virus, one little flu, and you have to face complete change in your whole personality. And that everyone is subject to disease. If you don't believe in it, everyone is subject to old age. No matter how best you live. And death. Oh, how expansive is time and its vast flow. The duration of my life is just a drop. One statement has to be understood. Who is experiencing the time? The mind. Time in itself has no reality. It is through the mind that you are experiencing time. Because time means continuity. Certain things flow in a stream. Past, present, future. It's flowing. If you are interested in the world, then the world presents constant change. And therefore time becomes the important factor. But if you are not interested in the world, if you have developed vairagya, you are in meditation, mind moves away from past and future. You outstep time. depending upon how deep your meditation. And in that stillness, you begin to discover eternity of the self. So all time perception is the magic of the mind. And but yet, this profound truth is hard to receive for the masses. The whole world is constantly busy with history. And when someone explores something that happened 1,000,000 years ago, it comes up with a tremendous news. So human mind is busy, constantly thinking about past and how things will be in future. Without understanding, all this is a play of your iPad. Now, come back to very normal way. Time is, you cannot think of time having a beginning. That there was on Monday at 5 o'clock time began. And after millions of years later, on Sunday at 5 o'clock, it will go away. That will be kind of foolish way of thinking. A normal way of understanding human personality is so transient. If you count your life in the terms of duration of time for your body, that duration is a world where you study things in the terms of millions of years, and your personality will drop. Why am I so proud of this kingdom, which is just a particle of dust in the vastness of the universe? Why do I direct my mind towards the removal of pain? Why do I not direct my mind towards the removal of pain that has not yet come? The idea behind it, why don't I find the cause of pain and remove the cause so that you don't get into the same cycle of birth and death and continue to perpetuate painful experience? I am endless in the beginning as well as in the end. This is the translation of two words, Anadi, Anant. Anadi, beginningless. Anant, endless. That's the soul. Soul has no beginning, without beginning, because the time doesn't exist. And it has no end. In other words, soul does not come under the grip of time. Soul is Brahman. Why am I so attached to it? Attached to limited existence? Why do I intensify my faith in the objects of the world that only give rise to the repeated experiences of birth and death? If spiritual thinking has not been made available, then human mind is constantly busy day by day how to secure possessions and how to secure your pleasure of the senses. And by the time you secure big money, Doctor gives you a good news. You can't eat much. The very sugar for which you have been working hard. That you have to shake off. Diabetes. This limited existence that appears in the middle is so transient. That another way of saying, you don't know how what was reality before you were born. And this much you know, that is a vast. It didn't come from a zero. So there was, but what was is vast. And after your death, again vastness. It's like a bird that suddenly comes from outside through a window into a hall. And hardly people are aware of it, goes through the other window. That's the predicament of every soul. Why am I so attached to it? Why do I intensify my faith in the objects of the world that only give rise to the repeated experiences of birth and death? You are constantly thinking of how to sustain your pleasure, your memories, how many good days were there, how many negative. What should I have done to perpetuate the good days? But that's again become palabras and memories. What is there for me, whether the objects of the world exist or perish? Let me discover me, the I am. That I am is not benefited by all the transient objects. The world is not benefiting the I am. All the illuminations are not benefiting the sun. This point has to be understood. You are not being benefited by the world. The only way we can say the world benefits you when you begin to realize that the world is illusory. That's the purpose behind the world. So what is there for me, whether the objects of the world exist or perish? Whether relatives and other forms of prosperity come or go? Like bubbles appearing and disappearing in the ocean, so are the objects of this world. There were great kings and emperors endowed with immense power, glory, fame, prosperity. But today they exist only in the form of memories, in the pages of history. Since those great personalities have all passed away, then what makes me expect the perpetuation of my physical existence? This is brought out in Mahabharata when Yudhishthira was given the question, what is the most surprising thing in this world? Yudhishthira says that everybody hears the news of death Every day, so many people died, hurricane came, the war happened, something happened. Every day you are hearing. But doesn't believe that you are also a part of that same story. And if that understanding, that type of visualization enters your mind, you are becoming grown up, you are becoming spiritually advanced. Otherwise, you are being duped by limited mind. What has happened to the treasures acquired by kings and emperors of the past? What has become of their glorious achievements? All have passed away. Why do I place my trust on these transient possessions and attainments? These words of Vairagya. By the sweeping currents of boundless time, millions of Brahmas have been destroyed. Millions of world systems have come and gone. And greatest of all men have been reduced to dust. Why then am I to place my trust in this transient life? See, among the problems of daily life, you have space. Come to this type of problem. But if you come to this stage, you know you are growing. And it is opening up a vast expansion, a glimpse to your boundless reality. So while it appears like a painful message to the mind, in reality it is a healthy state of mind. When a child is not constantly involved with the toys and baby bears and grows up to be interested in higher values, now the same setting of the toys, a genius child looks at them and doesn't like them. Objects that are near to one's body are considered direct. Objects that are far away are considered indirect or remote. All this is actually illusion. So many objects are directly with you. But when you lose your mental capacity, people suffering from certain mental disability, the mother is looking for a dear child and the child is near. But looks at the child and, who are you? I'm just giving you the idea that things are near. The word near itself is your mental illusion. It's created by mind. It's not illusion from practical point of view. But if you go into deeper study, it is. Because what could be nearer to you than your very body? But where is your body that was 5 years back? So near and far, direct and indirect, these perceptions are defective perceptions, erroneous. They are the play of mind. Even in dream you have the idea of this is near, this is far. You work hard to go up a tree to find a fruit. In dream. So what was far came to your hand. Wake up, neither there was a tree, nor your hand, nor the fruit. Same predicament is there from advanced point of view. And the body itself is considered to be the self. Everyone views the body, this is me. These are the three types of errors in one's thought. Three errors means viewing the body as the self. The error, things that are grabbed by your hand, you think they are direct experience. Things move away from your hand, you think that you have lost them. All these are illusions. Like bubbles that appear and disappear in the ocean, so do millions of creators, Indras, world systems, appear and disappear in the ocean of Brahman. Even that mighty Rudra, for whom Brahma and Vishnu are nothing but toys, even he is bent low by the terrible time. This will require deeper understanding. If you take it literally, masses become confused. The idea is being given that reality is Brahman. That Brahman through Maya, remember that always we repeat, Brahman and Prakriti. Prakriti is magical power of Brahman. Through that magical power has three stages. Sattva predominating, called Maya. Rajas predominating, called Avidya. Tamas predominating, Tamasi Prakriti. Through Maya-based, Prakriti-based expression of Brahman comes in three categories. The highest category, Brahman, through Sattva predominating, has three roles. Brahma, the creator. Vishnu, the sustainer. Shiva, the destroyer. Now come to understand all this is the magic show. This show goes on and on endlessly. So even that Brahma, the creator, is perishable. Vishnu, the sustainer, is perishable. When there is nothing to sustain, what will you do? Rudra, the destroyer, is perishable. The absolute reality, Brahman, has nothing to do with the world system and all the creation and creators and gods and all stories. They all are transcended. You have to understand it with a mature mind. This doesn't mean that you should stop your sadhana. And with this I'm going to conclude. The time marches on. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukmiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Mritat Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashtudduka Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Hari Om Tat Sat.